So I've worked with First Nations people. I have worked with first responders. I've worked with people like me who've gone through medical trauma and other trauma. Working with people with grief with the horses is fabulous. That's a whole other program. Like I have so many programs and so many things and workshops that I do just for fun, where I bring in and you've had some of these people on your podcast in the past, like Melissa Wolford with her harmonics, with the sound therapy.
Hello, I'm John Brink and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, central British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us around the world, it's a beautiful area, northern BC, with lots of nature. And today, a very special guest. Her name is Laurie Niedermayer. And Laurie has an extremely interesting story about animals, horses, dogs, and a life filled with animals. Laurie, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, John. It's very humbled and honored to be here. Thank you very much.
Nice to have you. And so, just a little bit of background. Where were you born, and are you from the area here, or?
My family's been a bit of we've been vagabonds for a while. I was born in Quebec, and we moved here in the 1970s. Okay. And I grew up, for the most part, here in Prince George and in Penny, which is a little tiny, teeny-weeny town east of town. And then I've been back and forth to Prince George. I left here in the 80s to go to the coast for work and came back in about 25 years later, and then moved away a bit and came back. And now we've been here for the last seven years now.
Yeah. So you spend most of your time really in northern British Columbia,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then for the guests watching us from around the world, it's a beautiful area, the northern BC, and we consider ourselves to be the capital of northern British Columbia, is Prince George. Represents probably 50% of the province of British Columbia.
Oh yeah.
And in terms of size, for those guests watching us, we are located about 500 miles north of Vancouver, or 800 kilometers for our European friends, which puts us physically in the center of British Columbia, only halfway up. And the rest is, is nature. You can encounter nature of all kinds of different description here on a daily basis. So It's a beautiful, beautiful area. So give me a bit of your background then, from Quebec. So that's where you were from your time in British Columbia, and particularly down the coast, and then coming up north again, and that sort of thing.
Oh, the journey's been interesting because I was down on the Lower Mainland, and I've always been the square peg in the round hole, so I've never quite fit in anywhere.
Right.
Always been, after growing up out in Penny a number of years, it was a huge learning experience for us, because we went out there, my family was absolutely clueless about living in the bush or anything.
Yeah.
And
how many people would there have been, just to put it into perspective? Penny, really, it's east of Prince George. It's virtually in the middle of nowhere. How many people would have been there?
At its peak in the 50s and 60s, it was a logging town, cedar mill, I believe. And when we were there in the late 1970s and early 1980s, there were only, I'm going to say at the most 30, maybe 35 at Christmas if all the kids came home for all the family members.
Unbelievable, eh?
Yeah, very tiny.
And a lot to do with the forest industry, logging, sawmilling, and all of that, typical for northern British Columbia. Then, less so now, but still quite a bit.
Oh yeah, I think there's only probably maybe a dozen people still living there right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, very tiny.
So quite and so how long were you there?
We were there from 79 to about 84 or 85,
about
I believe.
5-6 years, eh?
Yeah. Long enough, boy. Big learning curve. We went from blow dryers and boys and disco to pumping water and firewood. Collecting firewood.
Lifestyle, right?
Completely different, yeah. Clueless family Robinson.
Yeah. So so then from there on, what did you do there then? What were you doing?
I was just a kid. I was looking after the house. My mom was working here in town for a couple of realtors and for one of the lawyers here in town, and at the time, and my dad was retired. And so, it was there was the four of us kids. I was the oldest at 17, and then the youngest one was 7.
Right.
And we're just living there. Mom and Dad had had enough of the rat race, and
Right.
that's where we were. So they packed us up out to Penny.
So was the schooling there then? Where
I
was the
didn't
school?
know. I ended up doing some correspondence work, and then there was the elementary school for the little guys. But
Right.
yeah, there was nothing for us as teenagers. As teens, we either had to do correspondence or we had to come into town and board here in town somewhere.
Yeah, and that was not totally out of the ordinary. It sounds maybe strange for our friends that are watching us around the world that live in Europe in particular, but there's so many people in such small areas, and but here not totally uncommon. My wife spent some of her time in east of Fort St. John and and in the middle of virtually nowhere, and so there was. And going to school would take a couple of hours in buses and all of those kind of things,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So then, where did you go from there? You want then?
Oh, from Penny, I came into Prince George, and I was here for a couple of years working, bits and pieces, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do or where I wanted to be in life, and there just wasn't at that time a whole lot of opportunity here.
Right.
So I ended up packing up and going down in 1984, I believe it was, down to Vancouver, and I took some business courses and worked down there for about 20 years.
20 years, right?
About 20, 25 years. And I spent all of my weekends away hiking or canoeing or something where I wasn't in the city. And I never ever felt comfortable in the city.
Yeah.
And then I'm not sure when exactly, I ended up in the mid-90s getting a Siberian husky. And that was the beginning of my downfall, according to my family. So
now, Siberian husky is, I think you have a picture of one of them in you, but Siberian husky are typical, but what would you categorize them? They are fairly...
Oh, they're super high energy, medium-sized dog. They were originally bred to work with the Chukchi people in northern Russia and Siberia to move the villages around, and they lived very communally within they weren't just left out somewhere, they were part of the community.
Right.
And very super amazing animals, super intelligent.
Right.
But boy, are they a challenge, because if there's nothing in it for them, they want nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And so I started with one, and then I ended up with another one, and then I ended up with another one, and I'm still down in Vancouver at the time. And how do you exercise all these dogs? Because they're very energetic.
But you were living downtown Vancouver?
I was out in Langley, actually.
And, but still a very crowded
City.
area, right? So now you had 3.
Now I had 3, and I got involved because I was involved with the Siberian Husky Club, and they brought people up. They used to do what they call gig racing. Now it was kart racing. So it's like dog sled racing on wheels.
Right.
And my partner at the time was one of those instant experts, and I like to take my time and think about it. So we went to a couple of races, and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked. I've never been a competitive person, but oh my Lord, I found my.
That was the niche, yeah?
Oh, that was my jam.
Yeah.
And we split up, and I still had the 3 dogs, and I actually ended up at some point with 6. And then I was just struggling along. Yeah, just struggling along and just doing my thing and playing. And I got a lot of support from the people that were in the racing world.
Right.
And placed at those times number 2 in Western Canada and British Columbia, and number 8 overall internationally with the International Sled Dog Racing Association.
Wow.
And
now, sled dog racing are usually done in
winter.
In the winter, and you require snow for it. I think about Yukon Territory in particular, and for our guests watching us from around the world, the Yukon Territory is right next to Alaska. Visualize Canada, big country. Then the northern part is Alaska, Yukon Territory, Northwest Territories, and then BC, Alberta. So that usually the Yukon or Alaska, I think about sled dog racing, and it is a cart that the person that is riding it or the person that manages it is standing on the sled or walking with the sled.
Yeah.
And then
that's what you're standing on when you're actually on the back of a sled.
Yeah. And then how many dogs would you have in front of the sled?
It depends. So I started with 6.
Yeah.
And then I ended up at my peak when I was doing tours with 120 dogs.
Wow.
That was my full-time job.
Wow. And then again, sled dog racing, just to get a picture of it, because not many people have seen it. You say you would use 6 dogs in front of it?
You could use 6, you could use 4, you could use 8. When I was racing, it was 4 and 6s.
Yeah.
And there was a huge circuit here in the 1990s. It was a huge circuit. You could go from the beginning of December to the end of March. Somewhere in the province, there was a dog sled race. And now I think we're down to like 2.
Yeah.
If that.
Yeah.
Which is sad because it's such a beautiful family event.
So there you have 4, 6 huskies with their own opinions and to all do the same thing among the animal world. I love animals, obviously, and horses as well as dogs. Yeah. Is that they are very, very, very smart and opinionated. They're all different. They all have their characters, uniquely different. So usually what happens in sled dogging, there has to be a lead dog that is being trained that makes sure that the other ones stay in line and obviously work towards the same result. Yeah. So they want to win, that they feel very, very good if they are rewarded for being successful.
Oh, they love to run.
Yeah.
That's the good and the bad about the breed. And that's why so many of them end up in rescue, because people don't understand they need that. They're a working dog, they need that exercise. And to train them to do that, it's not difficult. You have to have the one that has the brains, that wants to listen and wants to be the lead dog.
Right.
But it's a ton of training. Like, it would take me a year to train a dog up to be a lead dog, sometimes 2 or 3 years. But I wouldn't just use the same one all the time, rotate them through.
So in a way, it reminds me of people in a way, especially when you're looking at sled racing and sled in a serious way, which you were obviously doing, is that you have to recognize leadership. Not every husky can become a lead dog, so you have to have those qualities of leadership that are unique to that to make you successful. And yeah.
And you just work and train, and always do it with positivity, right? Like,
right.
We used to say, because I ended up doing a lot of film work because we had so many dogs, and one of the things that they used to say on set is, well, can you get them to be quiet and put them in harnesses? And I kept saying, well, it's kind of like lighting jet fuel and expecting it not to burn. So the second we bring the harness out, they're ready to go. Yeah. And that's their job, and they know it, and they love it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So you want from a few of the dogs to become competitive and to have as many as 120, you said?
I did, but we only ended up with 120 because I ended up doing tour work. So I started with my 6. I was contacted by a film company when I was in the Lower Mainland, and we ended up doing 6 or 7 film productions. And I decided I wasn't doing that anymore, and I wasn't staying in the Lower Mainland, and I met some people in the Okanagan that were doing tours, and they invited me to come up and join them. So I moved lock, stock, and barrel right after the last film production.
How about all the dogs?
The dogs, we had 18 at the time.
Yeah.
And so, we moved up to the interior and we started doing dog sled tours.
Yeah, in the Okanagan first.
In the Okanagan first, and then I met my husband, and we ended up moving to the Caribou. And so we operated in the Caribou from 2004 to 2010.
And the Caribou means northern British Columbia, this region, Kennel,
100 Mile House,
Lake, in central British Columbia, right?
Yeah, and it was great. It was so much fun.
Right.
And I had people from all over the world coming and scooping poop in my kennel, and I had other tour operators going, how are you doing that? It's like part of the experience. You're here in the middle of nowhere, and we were an hour away from any town.
Right.
And you're there for a week or, however many days, and I never forced them. It's like, if you want, this is what we're doing. We're feeding, we're cleaning, we're doing our work.
Right.
And people were all like, how can I be there? How can I be there?
Yeah.
So it was just part of the experience. And I learned so much. I mean, I started with nothing. I had no idea. I'd never had a business.
Right.
And we did okay. We did pretty okay.
So your experience has been with dogs, but also obviously with other ones we'll talk about a little bit later. But, they are, most people, I would hope, and I believe so, love animals, don't always know and understand them. In a lot of cases, mid-sized dogs or any kind of dogs, people sometimes, in some cases, are afraid of them. But by and large, most people love dogs in particular. as a companion, and a lot of people have dogs, and they can be very helpful to people in many ways, not only as pets and as companions, but also dogs are trained for people that have requirements in terms of emotional issues. That's why we see some companion dogs being companions to people and recognized like that. You can usually see them with a cover around it that indicates that they are support to that individual, or for people that are blind, that it becomes the dogs. It's amazing how well they function, but it takes a long time.
It does, yeah.
I was in the Air Force in Holland when I was young. I was drafted into the Air Force Security Service Special Services, and and close by on our base were dog training for security reasons. So, and I always found I was not directly involved there, but I always watched them. They were part of a lot of things that we did, and I was always amazed how well they are trained, how well they understood.
Oh yeah.
So the point that I'm making, I believe that is a special relationship between people and animals, in particular dogs, but it also goes well beyond that, and we'll talk about that a little bit further. That are unique.
Yeah, and I understand you also have a dog or two, right?
We have 3, yeah.
Oh yeah, and so how special and how they become part of our family, right?
It's part of our family, right? So we love them, and we care about them, and but I always find out I've always had dogs in my life, and cats and horses and all of the other things, but I always find, especially with dogs, how interactive they are, how understanding they are. I did a podcast a couple of podcasts ago with one of the international dog trainers. I think he was from Texas or so, and very interesting conversation. I think it is Scott and Andrew will put a picture of him probably on our screen here at some point that to watch. I forget now what podcast it was, but very interesting to speak to somebody about that and how unique it is and how interactive they are.
Oh yeah.
So that in being said, at some point then you were in the Okanagan, then what happened next?
We ended up buying property in the interior outside of 100 Mile House,
Right.
and we moved up there in 2004, and then we got married on the property as well a few months later.
So where did you go then?
We were at Ridge Lake.
Okay, then where would that be?
It's about an hour sort of southeast of 100 Mile House.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's beautiful, beautiful area. And
So again, for our guests watching, international guests watching, is in central British Columbia, south of Prince George.
Yeah.
And again, another beautiful, beautiful area.
Oh, it's stunning. It's absolutely stunning. And we did quite well there. And then my husband ended up getting work away. And I got very ill. I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And at that point, I had to lose my heart. I had to place the animals, and I did, because I didn't know how things were going to unroll. And my husband was not in a position to take it all on. And
how many animals did you have by then?
At our peak, we had 120. So I think at that point we had about 80, and I placed them as much as I could in groups where they would be worked. A couple of different outfits took them on.
Were they all huskies still then?
Oh yeah, all purebred huskies, and I did. Many of them were rescues. I brought in rescues, and retrained them and that kind of thing. That was just part of what I did. And so when that all occurred, we ended up back up here in Prince George. And through the surgeries that I was dealing with and the chemotherapy and stuff, I couldn't look after them anymore.
No.
So I placed the last ones in 2010 with a friend of mine that lived out at Nempo Lake. And that's where they stayed. The last 20 stayed until they passed of old age.
Right.
And then my journey was totally different, because that life was over and I physically couldn't do it anymore. And it was, for me, I was through 4 years of treatment and 12 surgeries, 6 months of chemotherapy.
How are you doing now?
I'm 15 years out, and I'm doing just great.
So that would put you in the category that, you never quite sure, but then every so often you have to still get checked to make sure that things are under control. But for all intents and purposes, you could well be called a survivor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
and I never considered myself a victim. I was always a survivor. It was a what the F moment when I got the diagnosis, and then it was like, nope, I'm not giving into this.
Positive attitude.
Yep,
attitude,
absolutely.
passion, work ethic, right? So they have that positive attitude.
Oh yeah.
So then from there on, and and just for our guests watching, especially now, I always believe, because myself and my companies have been very, very involved in rescue and both animal rescues. And there is a lot more happening there now than there likely used to be. There always were people that deeply cared about animals, like you were, obviously, and many others. And but even in our region here, the Nicola Redcraft is a good example and a good friend of mine, and we have been very working closely with her. She was equine rescue service as well as many other animals, and so very unique. And so that may happen that some people use people that are not able to longer care about the dogs or horses or whatever the animals are, and then they get moved into a system that takes care of the animals, but in some cases more structured for whatever the reason is, that beautiful animals get surrendered and then end up in an area where they can then get adopted. And we have had several of them. Actually, one of my most favorite one is, although I love them all, but was a rescue here in Prince George, and but they are good companions. So then at some point you got to Prince George, and then you then moved towards horses.
Yes.
So give us a bit of background about that.
Well, in my journey, now that I was through treatment, and what am I going to do when I grow up? At that point, I was only 50 at the time. It's like, okay, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And I had a girlfriend.
You want to be active.
I had to be.
You're an active individual,
I had to be. And I had a girlfriend who has been doing this equine work for years. And we had talked initially when I lived in the Okanagan about working together, and it never really worked out because I met my husband and we moved away.
Yeah.
So we reconnected in 2016, and I went to her place. She was up in Lac La Hache at the time, and I went to visit her and had 4 sessions with her horses. And I said, that's it, I have to have my own. Like, if I'm going to do this, because I do therapy work, and I had retrained to do therapy work.
Right.
And this had always been in my heart. And so after having my experiences with the horses, which were magical, they were absolutely magical. I'd gone from being terrified of being around them because I'd had a major wreck when I was in my teens and rearranged my face. So
what happened there is that, horses are amazing animals. We have 7 of them in North Saanich.
Oh,
both my wife, myself, ride English dressage. So we've been around horses. I've been around horses my whole life, but they are large animals compared to horses, and different, but still very interactive, very understanding, and but were you jumping, or what were you doing?
It was actually, I worked out at Purdon Lake when I was in my late teens.
Just east of Prince
Just
George.
east of Prince George.
Yeah.
And they brought in, one year, they decided to try trail rides.
Oh, yeah.
So they brought a bunch of horses in for trail riding, and it was just the first couple of horses that were on the property, and the Wrangler was new and just getting used to them.
Yeah.
And I'd only done like little piddly stuff with horses. I hadn't done a whole lot at that time, and got up on this great big beast of a boy, a great big Palomino that I think was probably about 16 hands. Which is pretty darn tall.
Yeah, it's a big horse.
Yeah, big horse. And he spooked and ran around the bunkhouse and threw me. And it took me 25 years to remember that it was the last thing I saw was his hoof above my face.
Yeah.
So I landed on my face and rolled to get out of the way, but then the hoof was there.
Stepped on you.
So it broke my nose, shattered teeth in my jaw, all kinds of good stuff.
Yeah.
And it took me many, many years, although I'd been around people with horses. That's just, everyone I knew had horses one way or the other. And that's nice on the other side of the fence. You can just stay there. I'll pet you through the fence. I didn't want anything really to do with them. But my girlfriend was really adamant that I needed to experience this work.
Yeah.
And I did. And my first experience was lying in January in the snow on top of an upturned trough. And her donkey and her horses were around. And the donkey, I was absolutely spit butt terrified, was playing with the zipper on my shirt. And I had to learn to calm myself down and bring myself really to center, to really get centered and to calm down and to be, at peace kind of thing. And then after that, it was just a huge learning curve.
So the key for you were still trying to get over the experience that you had, which was serious. And all of us, that I've been in one riding dressage lesson, I think I fell off the horse 3 times, but I was lucky, but most of the times it's common, but then obviously when you get stepped on, it can become very serious.
Oh, yeah.
And so that, the key is always to be careful and then for having people around that understand the horses, give guidance in terms of what is acceptable and learning around them. So I just want to come back to your experience that you had in Williams Lake, where you met your friend that was doing therapeutic things with horses.
Yeah.
And that was a whole new experience for you.
Yes.
And I just want to explain to our guest here that are watching us from around the world as to what is that? And I just give you my impression of it is that horses, again, very, very unique, amazing animals, and most people love them, although they are somewhat afraid of them initially because they are so big, and then once they get to become familiar with, they will love them because they're very interactive and very gentle usually to interact with. But some people that have issues, whatever those may be, to have that interaction with the animals and in a guided setting is extremely helpful for them to break through the issues, whatever they are, and to build that relationship that will become very, very helpful for them. I'm thinking about young persons in particular. I've seen them, 4, 5, 6 years old, and already from that point forward, where they have interaction with animals that create that special relationship, and that is very helpful for them physically, mentally, and physically I'm thinking in terms of interaction between that big animal and that person, but also mentally in terms of developing that relationship and dealing with the underlying issues maybe.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of what is in my mind. So maybe explain to our guest. So then what you did is you got step 1, step 2, step 3 from that point forward, and then you formed this company, and the company is Triquetra Therapeutic Services.
Triquetra Therapeutic,
So what does that mean? Where does the name come from?
Well, Triquetra it's a traditionally ancient Celtic symbol, and it's been used around the world in many different forms. And initially it used to mean the mother maiden crone for the healers in the community many years ago. And then when the Romans took over Britain way back in the Dark Ages, it became a symbol for the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And then now in more modern times, the Triquetra represents body, mind, and spirit.
Does what?
Body, mind, and spirit. Or body, mind, and soul, depending on what your belief system is. And so the Triquetra to me really spoke to all the levels that I work on in the therapy work I do. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, I'm an energy worker, and then I do the work with the animals, with the horses. And ultimately...
An amazing combination, actually.
It is.
To be honest with you.
It covers all of it. And
but very important in this case.
It is hugely important. And so that's the basis behind why I chose the name. When I was looking for a name that encapsulated everything that I did. And so the therapy work, you are absolutely correct. It does, and I've done work with young children. I work with everything. I work with people. Doesn't matter how messed up they are. For a lot of people, when they're coming and learning and being with the horses initially, for some people, it's the very first time that they've ever had an interaction with another living being without judgment, without abuse.
Right.
And so it's the very first time that they've ever experienced that. And that alone, to be present when that's happening, is just, it brings tears to my eyes every time. And I get all choked up because it's a beautiful thing to watch and to help, to witness.
Right.
And so the work that I do, the therapeutic work that I do, I say that, but I really mean it's the horses. They are so sentient, and people don't understand that they are a sentient being, and they have feelings and emotions, and horses are a perfect mirror to us of what we need to work on. So in my therapy work, I have one horse who is absolutely magic. It doesn't matter how messed up a person is emotionally, or how upset they are, or how angry they are, or whatever it is, the emotion and the over the top. He will just come and hang his head over the shoulder and just stand there. And you can literally feel the love pouring off of him.
Yeah.
And that on its own is magic to the person that is experiencing it, because they've never experienced unconditional love.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Which sounds like a very woo thing, but it's not. It's very, very tangible when you're part of it.
Exactly.
And then I have another horse who is my personal riding horse, and God bless him, I love him to pieces. He's the very first horse we ever owned. And he's an absolute ass. He pushes every button I have. And he's perfect for those people that think that they're all that and a bag of Smarties. You know, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to do this and that and the other thing. And he literally, if horses could give you the middle finger,
that's what it would
he does. Yeah. And he literally turns around and goes away and will not have anything to do with that person until they ground themselves.
Yeah.
And until they learn how to be calm and centered and at peace.
Right.
And then once they do, he'll come and he'll be all over you.
Yeah.
And I have another one that is perfect for pushing buttons. So people that don't have any boundaries, like there's a lot of people, men and women, that have no boundaries when they're dealing with other people. You know, they're in your space, they're in your face, or whatever that may be. And she's perfect for teaching people how to get through that.
Yeah. Because
she is in your pocket. We got her from a lady that liked to feed her lots of carrots and treats.
Yeah.
So she's always looking for treats in the pocket.
Yeah.
And so someone who's never had a boundary or doesn't know what a boundary is, now they have to learn to stand back and say, hey, no, you can't do that.
Right.
And for some people, that's the first time they've ever had to learn how to say no.
Right.
And actually mean it.
Right.
Right? So it's that kind of magic. I like to say that I work with the transformation and the magic of the human-horse connection.
Right.
Because it is magic.
It is.
It is magic to watch. And you've got your own horses, so you've experienced it.
Yeah, and I experienced this from the time I was a kid, you know, because I grew up in northern Holland, and I had some of my mom's uncles, really, that were farmers. And I'm talking now about, you know, the 50s, late 40s, 50s. I was born in 1940, so, they had these Belgian horses that were usually used for farming, and pulled the plows and did all the work until the transformation took place. And I still remember that they bought a tractor in addition to the 3 big horses that they had. But I already got used to being around those, you know, those big Belgian horses, and very gentle animals, but very, you know, were key and critical. So the point that I'm making is that in time going back, the horse-people relationship has always been there in the history.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And it's always been critical. You know.
It has, and I mean, I don't think that our society would have developed as well as it has without that collaboration between the species, for sure.
And then the other part is unique, is what you are doing in terms therapeutic, is that you know, which for a lot of people, and hence our discussion here, they should experience the uniqueness of the relationship that it can be. And what I've seen over and over again, as you already indicated, obviously over time I've always had a close relationship with animals and horses in particular, but and seeing therapeutic organizations working with young people or troubled individuals of any description.
Yeah.
And just that relationship is going to an environment that has these horses for that particular purpose, and just seeing the reaction that they will get. Doesn't mean having to go physically on the horse, but just being in that environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And where we are, we live out on a horse farm west of town.
Okay, so a horse farm west of town, again, for our friends watching us from around the world, is west of town that is towards the Pacific coast, and so west of town is towards Vanderhoof in that direction. How far out of town would it be?
We're about 35 minutes out.
So that's about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Something like 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And then, so on Highway 16 going west, and then, so where do you turn? Are you close to the highway, or?
Yeah, we're just off the highway, actually.
Just off the highway?
Yeah, 2 kilometers off the highway.
So where would it be? What road turns off?
We're just off of Doll Lake Road.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think I've been around that. So you have the farm there?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. We lease where our horses are and where we live.
Okay.
And the landowners live on the property as well. So they have many horses, and I just have my 5.
Okay.
And so for a lot of people, and because I have done work with people that are youth at risk, women that are at risk, coming out of not very good situations.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, just that drive alone, even coming off the highway, is calming and centering and grounding, and it's all land-based therapies is all it is, right? You're just out in nature. It's nature-based therapies.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that is enough to set somebody up for a great success with the horses, right?
Yeah.
And then all of our horses are in the open. They're free. We've got a 5-acre pasture. I have an arena set up in there so that we do the work in, but the horses are in the 5-acre pasture for the most part. And then in the summertime, we open it up and they have 10 acres that they can run on. Where they're just natural. They're as natural as we can still have them.
Yeah.
And call them in to do the work. And the horses always, I never ever pull a horse in by going out and catching them and putting them on a halter and bringing them in.
No.
I'll call them in, and the horses will take measure of whoever it is that's there and their energy, because they're very in tune with our energy. And I don't force the horses to come in and do the work. They choose who they're going to work with.
Yeah.
Which sounds really strange, but they absolutely do.
I know, I understand it, but I love you explaining it. Yeah.
So, we'll come down, I'll call them in, and they'll come up. And so people get the opportunity to watch the herd. I have a whole exercise a whole bunch of energy exercises we do before they even get to touch a horse.
Right.
And for some people, that's too much. They can't even touch a horse, and that's okay.
That's fine.
So a therapy session might be where we're just standing outside the fence and they're watching, and we're just talking about what they're envisioning and what they're seeing, and how it's making them feel inside. And then for others, we may actually get up and we may actually do some grooming, where they actually get to put hands on the horse, and that's a whole other magical experience.
Yeah.
And then for others, once we've done a few sessions with them to help regulate and help them work through whatever their issues are, we'll actually get them working and making connection with the horse. So we do everything at liberty, and liberty just means that they're not on a halter or a line or a leash or anything, right?
Yeah.
I call leash, it's still dog training, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Yeah.
It's not the right terms, but so they're not being held by anything. So the horses always have the option to move away. If that energy is too much, or if that person is too much, or something is just too overwhelming, the horses have the option to move away, so that they have safety as well.
Yeah.
And that's a big part of what I do, is to make sure that they're as safe as my clients are.
Exactly.
And so then the option, or the ultimate goal, is to have the clients connect with the horses, so they can I can put them through an obstacle course with the horses at liberty on their shoulder, because they've made that connection with that other being and they want to work together.
Exactly. So the key is really, there are so many challenges for so many people, in particular young people, but not necessarily only, but to have the relaxation of going towards the farm and then having a purpose of being there, if it is even only for the purposes of watching others interacting in this kind of a setting, would be unique. And you have and I have seen the amazing results it will have once that is understood and developing that relationship and seeing then from there and then progressive, it will affect the young person in a lot of cases, using that as an example, but it applies to all the people as well, to see that relationship and what it does that horse-person relationship develop. Is unique.
And what's beautiful about it is that the work that they've done and that we do in the arena with the horses is carried forward into their day-to-day lives.
Right.
So I've done work with young women or young girls that are, very shy, and we all know that girls right now in society are going through some really horrible stuff in terms of self-image and confidence and any of that kind of thing.
All of that, yeah.
And so I've had little girls come out that, I think the youngest I've worked with is like 12.
Yeah.
And they're little tiny things, and then there's these big horses. And so to see the confidence and the joy that comes into their lives and into their eyes when they can actually make that connection with the horse, and now they are making that horse walk around and do the obstacle course with them.
Yeah.
Right? What kind of a confidence boost that does for them. When it's a 1,200-pound animal and they're 80 pounds, they're making the horse do this, but the horse is working with them. So that's beautiful. I've had clients come out that are dealing with a lot of addiction type issues with adults, women and youth, coming out with addiction issues and learning how to be and how to work through their pain, and because all addictions are pain-based.
Exactly.
Or grief-based. And so to be able to work through those emotions with the horses being that beautiful mirror for them, that they can carry that forward then and make those changes and shifts a whole lot easier in their actual day-to-day lives.
Yeah. So what makes this so unique, Laurie, is that you have a number of skill sets that that are obvious already. Of recognizing that in people, in persons, but you have also a lifetime of experience of going through all the ups and downs and the challenges along the way, and then the other one is the amazing things that you did with animals, dogs in particular. All of that has laid a foundation where you have the benefit of not only the academic background in terms of that is very helpful to you, but also the interaction with animals and understanding them. And I have seen it myself that what will happen to young persons in particular, and uniquely young women in particular, not exclusively, but in particular a lot of times it seems to be a lot of young women are involved with horses. I see that in the arenas that we work in, here and in the Lower Mainland and on the island, but it's unique, and a lot of people that are dealing with issues in their family and with young persons in particular, even just going down together and seeing it, is an experience that they will not regret. It could well be the turning point in somebody's life. And what you're saying is so true. I see that all the time. I talk to a lot of people, young persons in particular, do a lot of presenting about them and saying that everybody is special and unique. There's only one of you, meaning in a general sense. There's nobody else like you, and you are special. And that's very important to believe that. It
is, absolutely, and particularly for people that are struggling with anything, right? Like, so I've worked with First Nations people, I have worked with first responders, I've worked with people like me who've gone through medical trauma and other trauma. Working with people with grief with the horses is fabulous. That's a whole other program. Like I have so many programs and so many things and workshops that I do just for fun, where I bring in and you've had some of these people on your podcast in the past, like Melissa Wolford with her harmonics, with the sound therapy, pardon me, where they've come out and been part of the workshops that I do over the weekends in the summertime. And that's beautiful to watch the horses interact with the different musical instruments as well, right? It's an experience. It is.
Amazing. So give us a bit of an idea in terms of, that you have a website. I believe another thing that you're doing, you're interactive on the internet and as well, which is, again, as we are already doing now, an amazing platform to get a message out, in particular, not only about what you're doing here, but also for the world in general, that may be looking or doing things similar to what you're doing. So how do you get the message out? So you have a website that is active. If you got, how do you connect to it?
It's triquetratherapeuticservices.com.
Okay, maybe just spell it, because I've had some challenges with that.
I know, it's a difficult one. My husband says, why can't you pick something simple?
No. I'm sure that we will put it on here, so on our podcast, but just to make sure.
Okay, it's TRIQUETRA Therapeutic Services.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so so once somebody goes to that website, what will they find?
Well, they'll find a little bit of information. I have pictures on there of the horses, who my team is, and they're my therapeutic team. And then I also have some pictures of the farm, some pictures of some of the advertising that I do. A little bit of a description, but not a whole lot, because it's really hard to describe what it is people are going to experience, because it's individual. So there's a little bit about the horses, a little bit about the horse therapy, a little bit about the clinical hypnosis that I do, and the magic that is, because that is absolutely magic. And then there's also pieces around the online programs that I'm putting forward. And these are brand new to me, because I am not a tech person, right?
Because it is immensely powerful, the internet, and especially podcasting and YouTube and all that media, all those platforms are changing the world. And in fact, some people would say newspapers have already been replaced by the internet, and likely a lot of the radio stations that we know are secondary to podcasting and those platforms.
So on there is the online programs as well, and then there's the opportunity to connect with me. Send me emails, send me messages. I'm very open to that.
Emails? Have you got email address?
I do. It's Triquetra Wellness. Again, TRIQUETRA Wellness at gmail.com.
Okay.
And then I also have Facebook and Instagram. I don't do a whole lot. I'm doing better. I'm learning. I'm actually in a marketing program right now to learn how to do all that stuff.
Yeah, that's good.
Because you never stop learning.
No.
And it's just the information is there. It's really difficult to get people to figure out that this is what they need. So I'm still trying to figure that out. And I've also got a mini, I guess it would be a podcast, because I'm just interviewing people that I know to start with, to find out who they are and what their business is. And they're mostly local here, but I am branching out a little bit just to have fun. And that's called Conversations from the Farm.
I love that too. So you have a team around you?
No, it's just me.
Just
me and the horses.
Right, well, that's good. So I hear a lot of things. So now a lot of people are sitting there watching. I say will be watching us starting tomorrow, actually, because we're going to post this one right away.
Oh, thank you.
What we do with our podcast is, I don't want to give you a number, but you're 238. And usually what we do is we podcast very quickly the following day or even the same day, because we don't change anything to the podcast is what it is. We don't go through editing this. Right. No, this is how it will be podcasted. And this one, Andrew, when does this one post, today? So
Wow.
there you go. And you can then, it spreads all over the place. We have a very broad coverage, obviously. You already know that. Nearly 100,000 people on YouTube are subscribers. And so what we want to do is talk to the public here in the region in particular and saying, we have their interest now in saying, okay, I will go down there, so I will find the location. Did we describe that well enough? I believe we did. And then the next thing is, what happens when I go? Does it cost me anything to go and look and talk to?
Well, I do have a couple of options starting. I can't remember the date right now, but I believe it's April 27th. I've put it out on social media, but there's not been a lot of response. But if there's anybody that's interested that wants to come out and meet the herd, so it would just be a very generic come out, this is the location, these are the horses.
That's the best start though, because that's where it starts, right? So
Absolutely.
And take your family with you, take whatever, get to know Linda and get to know the team and the location, okay.
And then just depending on, who comes out, I might do a little bit of a demonstration on what it actually is, right? Like, let's do a little game. So I have some great little energy games that I do to just teach people, because the whole thing of working with animals, whether it's dogs or cats or horses or cows, whatever it is, they're all animals and they all interact energetically, as do we as human beings.
Yeah.
Because we are animals. At our core, we are animals.
No question.
So it's the journey for me has been learning to read and understand the underlying. So with the therapy work I do, any of it, I don't need to know people's stories.
No.
So you could come out and be, have really deep-seated emotional issues. I don't need to know, you don't need to rehash it.
No.
We just go and do the work.
Exactly.
And the horses will bring that out in whatever has to happen.
Yeah.
So it's teaching people how to tune into that energy.
So would there be, and I'm just kind of figuring, so that saying that, hopefully we get to the point that saying that on Sunday afternoons or Saturday afternoons, whatever it is, from 2 till 4, that is a showing of what the animals can do, something along those, I don't know what, and so that I would see people going down there and saying, yeah, that'd be the thing that we want to do. We can just stand back and just kind of watch what is going on here, and then from there on in, now we...
Well then, if they're interested and they would like, I have workshops. So I have a 6-week workshop or classes, I guess it would be, for women and or men, not together, because generally women don't want to work their issues out with men, and men definitely don't want to admit that they've got problems.
Yeah.
So I can do classes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, I know, right? It's like, come on guys, get it together. So I have classes that I can set up to do. I haven't got anything set in stone yet because there hasn't been a lot of interest.
Yeah.
I have workshops that people can come and take part of.
That will change now after this podcast.
I'm sure it will, and I'm so grateful.
No, don't be grateful. It's important for all of us.
It is. And so there's classes, there's workshops, there are individual. So I can do group sessions or I can do individual sessions with clients.
Yeah.
So if you're, coming and it's, we can work out, I have a base price for it, but because I have to cover the costs, right? I only work for 4 months of the year, so we have to cover and horses are not cheap.
I'm not I'm not asking for the exact cost.
I know that.
But I believe it would be reasonable for the public to understand.
Yeah.
It's reasonable. It's not outrageous.
Yeah,
and I don't even know what it is, and I don't need to know, but I know you and what you do, and so we just have to get people to go there and just to interact, and the results I know already from my perspective. I've seen it over and over and over again. It will change everything.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's been our struggle all along. I've been doing this work since 2019, and then of course COVID hit, and that just totally blew us out of the water.
Yeah.
But it's still, the work is so important, and getting the word out is critical to letting people know that we're here, and letting people know the benefits that come from doing this work. is, I'm so humbled and so honored to be able to offer, like to bring my scope of experience and to offer this to people.
And it has been proven all around the world, therapeutic interaction between horses in particular and young person or people that have troublesome issues, whatever age they are, interacting with horses has been magic and understood to be for a long time. In your case, obviously, with the skill sets that you already have, and the location that you have is perfect and ideal, right? And I would urge people to go to your location, even if it just to understand what you're doing and what is going on, and that's step one.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I would invite people to do, if they do want to come out and meet the herd, is to contact me so we can actually set up a time. So it's not like all of a sudden we have 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 people show up, and it's like that's just that's like too much at once for everybody. So, we'll set up times so people can come out and see, like if you want to come with your family, there's 5 or 6 of you, we'll bring you at this time. And then this next group can come at this time.
And how do you feel most comfortable being contacted? By email or through the internet? Or
email is fine, or they can call, because my phone number is all over my webpage and all over my socials. So I'm very open to that. Just reach out. And it's I don't pressure people. It's this is for you or it's not.
So have you done? I know you have worked with some people on our team, Andrew, I believe, on some things. Have you done some videos on things that you're doing?
Yeah, well, Andrew came out a couple of years ago and did a fabulous job with a video for us. And I've been using bits and pieces of that over the last couple of years as well. And I'm trying to get more comfortable because I really hate being on camera. So I'm,
well, you know.
So. But this is different because it's just a conversation. When I have to be the talking head, I hate it. So, I'm getting better about taking the camera with me when I go down to the pasture, which is also very difficult because, as you know, when you're working with these guys, you have to have both hands. You have to be. I can't be fiddling around with the camera. But I am doing a little bit more of that kind of thing. Taking pictures because we also have chickens of the chickens running. Like I feel like the Pied Piper when they come running every time I come outside. So I'm posting fun stuff like that. And just little bits and pieces of videos that have happened over the years. Just to show it.
So I think, that this is unique for Prince George, and obviously you've given a lot of commitment to it, and, and I believe this podcast will help people in the region here become more knowledgeable about it. Plus people that are from far and wide that want to watch you on the internet, that is available. And, so anything else that comes? The other thing I want to mention is before getting towards the end of our program is that you're also an author and you wrote a couple of books? I
have, self-published. The first one was on my condensed down 25 years of dog sled tours and racing and movie work and all the silliness that we've done is condensed down into a book, and that's called Confessions of a Sled Dog Addict, Tales from the Back of the Sled. That's available through Friesen Press or on Amazon, and that's sort of a print-on-demand thing. And then the other book that I did is also on Amazon, and it chronicles my journey through my cancer treatment. So that one's called My Right Breast, which is one woman's journey through cancer. And so those are the two that I've done. Written many other things over the years and was very involved in, have a huge soapbox on animal husbandry and that type of thing. But I've got lots of stuff I could put down in another book because, this has been quite the checkered, silly journey. So there's so many stories.
So I'm also, as you know, an author. Did you get any of my books?
Yes, I've actually, the first two books I've got. And
so you got
they're fabulous.
Let me see if I got the ones here. And just to give you an idea, is that, so you got this one.
Yes, I do. I've got it.
Did I sign it?
No.
Okay.
I got it. I can't remember where I got it.
Did you got this one here, ADHD Unlocked?
Yes, I did.
Did you get that one?
I haven't had it signed, but no, I do have it.
Okay, and then this one is Finding Your Passion, Living the Dream.
Yeah, that's your new one, is it not?
That is the new one, that is out, and so it's all about stuff that you and me were talking about it, and saying, okay, John, that is interesting, and so are you living the dream? I am, and I believe you are.
I like to think I am.
Yeah.
My
So
family
I'm going to
thinks I'm
sign
nuts,
this
but-
one for you.
Oh, bless your heart. Thank you.
Just want to make sure I spell your name right. Laurie, Laurie. All the best.
Well, thank you so very much.
Now, as you know, and as I know, and as friends that are watching us from around the world know, writing books is not easy.
No.
It's a
Thank you very much.
In fact, it's a challenge. Now, this other one is important as well, and we're somewhat talking about this is people that have challenges, and we believe that up to 25% of stigma around ADHD, and I'm happy to say that I was blessed with ADHD. I call it the superpower, but initially when I found out about it, I was already in my nearly in my 60s, so and the more I found out about it, the more I believe that, and so do most of the experts in the field, that as much as 20% of the population have the benefit of ADHD. And again, for that is the key to ADHD is to remove the stigma. And the other one is to understand it, and then making sure to understand how can you make it work for you,
Right.
and then create to be a superpower.
Well, I've been following you, for quite a while, and just absolutely amazed at your story. It's so inspiring as well. And I can remember growing up here when Brink was just,
50 years ago.
just, the little tiny organization that it was, and how you've built it and grown, and that's just so inspiring as well. Because it means that anybody can do it, right?
If I can do it, anybody can do it virtually.
Yeah.
But the key is that when I started, I had 60 years ago when I arrived here, 2-3 blocks away from here was the Greyhound station. I had a suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. I didn't have a job, couldn't speak language, didn't know a soul.
Yeah.
But what I did have is attitude. I avoid negative. No matter how tough today is, I know tomorrow's going to be better.
Yeah.
I had passion. Whatever I get involved in, I give it 150%. And then work ethic is that I work harder than anybody. I get up, even now at nearly 84, I get up 5:30 in the morning, and I would think I'm late. I always make my bed, and I always get ready for the day, and I'm busy, and I love it.
Yeah.
And work ethic, that's what you do, give it all that you got, but will follow is success.
Absolutely.
And that's
Absolutely.
the critical part.
Yeah. Just live your dream.
Living your dream. And then the other book that I'm writing right now that is pretty much finished and should come out, I believe, in July or August.
Wow.
And living young, dying old. Wow. And this book is, what camera am I on, Scott? Okay, good. Andrew. So, and saying that age is just a number. Is what the objective is, quality of life.
Right.
And so what I'm trying to live is stay healthy mentally, physically, and stay active physically, diet, don't smoke, don't drink, all that kind of stuff. Healthy living style.
Yeah.
And then I want to get to about 120.
Good for you.
That's the objective.
Yeah. Good.
So, Laurie, it was a pleasure.
Thank you.
And I'll give you a hug,
You
but
bet.
we are both hooked up,
Thank
so
you.
I hope that, and I know that this podcast will be around the region. I urge people that from all ages that have challenges, the interaction between animals and people in general are extremely helpful horses in particular, through history, have been known for being close to people, and especially those that have challenges, and develop those relationships with young people that are having challenges of whatever description. I urge you to go and watch Laurie's organization and her friends, her animals, and at least get an understanding, and I assure you, life will never be the same afterwards.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Laurie, thanks.
Thank you very much, John. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm a cancer survivor, and this was one of the therapies that got me back to being 100%. I do holistic therapies, so clinical hypnosis, Reiki sessions, Psyche balancing, somatic exercises, whatever it is that people need to help heal body, mind, and spirit is the basis of Triquetra. But it's not like a typical counseling session where, I'm asking all the time or making you repeat it. I don't need to know the story. I don't need to know what your problem is. I just need to know how you're feeling and how working with these guys is actually helping you to bring that and recognize it, and let's work through it. Let's find a way to work it through. Experience some really deep and profound changes. The emotion just comes. A lot of the younger girls and teens are looking for self-esteem, self-confidence issues, body issues. It's a lot of anger management and authority issues. Women are coming out of really nasty situations or starting life over and just don't know where to go, and they're looking for answers. Well, I don't give answers, and the horses don't give answers. You find the answers with them, within yourself. They're the therapists, so they will interact with whatever energy they're feeling and whatever emotions are coming up for people. They'll react to that. For someone that might be coming out of a really lousy relationship or has had just no really good positive interactions with people through their entire lives, sometimes just being with these guys and being able to just come up and just pet him is huge. It's a huge step forward. It's the first time for some people that they've ever been near another being with unconditional love, without judgment. And so that will work a lot of things therapeutically for someone that they may not get in a normal counseling program. The end goal is to help people heal, whatever it takes.